In the video you're about to watch, I'm basically just reacting to the Jordan and LeBron argument I made in, I think it was 2018. God, it was before LeBron's 2018 run. Yeah, I kind of want to get a series going where I react to some of the biggest videos I made. Not all of them, because some of the biggest videos I made are not react worthy, but some of them do have arguments that I probably don't even agree with today. And it's just fun to see how things have changed. Once again, this is a LeBron and Jordan video before he had his 4th NBA championship. I've really just been around that long. I've been around long enough to see narratives change, careers change, all that good stuff. So I'm going to start with this one and then probably just go down the list of at least my videos that are over 1 million views. Either way, enjoy and hit the like button if you do. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention in said video, I am completely overdressed because I just returned from somewhere and then I just cut the camera on and started recording. So that explains that. All right, enjoy.
LeBron James is better at basketball than anyone I've ever seen. Period, point blank. And when you say, what did...
Right off the bat, it's crazy that I started this, I wouldn't say flaming Nick Wright, but going straight for his neck. And here I am 6 years later, and the first thing he says, I absolutely agree with.
Did Jordan do better? It's a good question. Because the one thing people say is Jordan was a better scorer. Well, was he? Jordan for his career averaged exactly 3 more points per game than LeBron averaged, but he did it on more than 3 more shots per game. LeBron shoots a better percentage from 2, shoots a better percentage from 3. He is clearly the more versatile defender. LeBron James can guard 5 positions on the court.
Listening to Nick Wright talk about LeBron James, it hurts my head, to be honest. No, it's not because I hate LeBron. No, it's not because I'm your typical run-of-the-mill old head who thinks Michael Jordan is Jesus.
Craziest part about me saying I'm not an old head is I've been getting called Unc now since pretty much I turned 25.
But it's because Nick says a lot of things that sound good when nobody on the panel takes the time to correct him on things he's clearly wrong or biased about.
Yeah. He went to a team that was not a playoff team and made him a champion. He left that team and they missed the playoff.
All right, I can already tell you what I'm going to say in this video before I say it, because that right there, that's an argument. I feel like I haven't seen it on NBA Twitter as much, but people would say that about LeBron going to Miami as if he didn't come with Chris Bosh and join Dwayne Wade. Like, it just never made sense to me that people would compare the, the 2010 Miami Heat to the 2011 Heat and just say LeBron went to that bad team. Like, he and Chris Bosh is a big fucking difference. Let's see what I thought 6 years ago, though.
So, you're just going to ignore every other factor that led to Miami missing the playoffs that year? Alright, cool.
Yeah, no, that's the part I missed. So he talks about when he left the Miami Heat as well, and then missing the playoffs, which, yeah, once again, that's 2015. Off the top of my head, there were numerous injuries to report that year.
I'm not about to have a roasting session of Nick Wright, and honestly, I'm not even going to take the time to correct everything he says because B-Sauls actually did a good enough job on that a while back. But what I am going to do is inject some simple but needed common sense into this whole MJ LeBron argument. This is really the simplest argument you're ever going to hear, and I don't know why it never comes up. Do you know what else never comes up? This awesome app that you've definitely never heard of that can help you get a front row seat to see.
Yes. Oh, you know what? Okay, SeatGeek is one of the sponsors I've used that I actually will sit through. That's one I have used over and over again, but not today.
Okay, so let's wipe the board clean here. I'm just going to show you some really simple concepts that involve logic and math. And on top of that, until we get to the end, I'm not even going to mention championships once. I am going to mention them, but by the time I do, I have a feeling they won't be necessary to cement what I've already said. There seems to be this group of people out there that just want rings to go away when comparing their favorite players. Every single day I see NBA Twitter trying to diminish the greatest thing you can accomplish as a superstar franchise player. So we're going to play by that group's rules until the end where I show how stupid that logic is. But for now, let's get started on this.
And that I still agree with. I don't know if I say it in this video, but the one thing I always felt is, okay, if LeBron was 6-0, if he had won 6 titles by now, you would never be able to take that away from Bron fans. That would be deep in their bag. There would be nothing you could say to that. At the time I made this, he had 3, he's moved up to 4. I don't know if 5 or 6 is gonna happen. Still though, the movement to diminish NBA championships when talking about great players, I've never been behind that. I'm still not behind that. I think the simplest player you can use to talk about this with is Dirk Nowitzki. His 2011 championship did so much for him because that is how this works. Again, it did so much for him, and I think specifically because it helps that it was against the Miami Heat. It did so much though that no one even talks about all the years that led up to that. All the issues in his career that he had before that, they're non-existent in today's Dirk Nowitzki discourse. That is what a championship can do. That's its value. That's part of its value.
Depending on when this video comes out, LeBron James is roughly 25 games away from completing his 15th year.
Oh my gosh. He was on season 15. Today he is on season 20. Where did the time go, bro?
Here in the NBA. That's significant for this video because by that point, he will have played the same amount of seasons as Michael Jordan, giving them a nice and easy basis for comparison. Of course, there's the fact that he's already played more total regular season games than him, and the fact that the remaining 25 games really aren't going to change anything I have to say. Starting from the top, Nick Wright had some snarky attitude about MJ being the better scorer than LeBron, and then he even questioned that because of MJ attempting 3 more shots per game in his career. Okay, well, I don't know much about math, but I don't need to know much to understand these basic numbers. The fact that LeBron hasn't finished his 15th season yet is pretty irrelevant here because he's almost an entire 2,000 points behind Jordan as we speak. Same amount of time, more games played, and close to a 2,000 point difference. But that's not the best part about that. Do you know when Michael Jordan scored most of his 32,000 points? In the 11 seasons with the Chicago Bulls when he wasn't coming back from retirement or a broken foot. So if we do the math on that, in 11 seasons, Michael scored 28,412 points. That's very close to the total amount of points LeBron James has in 15 total seasons. And by the way, these are just numbers. This doesn't account for Michael being more technically sound, having better footwork, a better back-to-basket game, a better mid-range game, having mastered the fadeaway. Oh, and I also purposely waited until the end to remind you that Jordan is a 10-time scoring champion. LeBron won the scoring title once. Jordan's best scoring year was 37 points a game compared to LeBron's 31. This was a regular-sized NBA player that almost averaged 40 a game in the era that you all like to call quote-unquote real basketball. So you know what,
Wow, how much has that changed, right? This is why I love having a channel. You can catch snapshots of discourse in time. I made this in 2018, and this is when it was very popular. You would see that, oh, Jordan's era was the real era or the tougher era. I feel like just in 5 or 6 years, or 5 or 6 short years, that has flipped on its head when people talk about really anything under the year 2000. It feels like it's not the same anymore, man. And as someone who has watched more 80s, more 90s basketball since then, I would just be lying. It would be disingenuous to look at tape from that time and look at tape today and argue it was more skilled back then. It's just disingenuous to do so. Also interesting here, watching now in the year 2024, is LeBron is the all-time leading scorer in points. Thinking about the lockout season he had in 2012, all the injuries he's had as a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. It took him till 2023 to pass Kareem, and he definitely could have done it before.
I think anybody except Nick Wright was even questioning Michael being the better scorer. If you want to side with him because you think Michael attempting 3 more shots a game accounts for everything I just laid out, then be my guest. But I'm marking this one off. Oh, and a side note before I leave this area for good. For those of you that are going to use the field goal percentage argument Nick Wright set you up to fail with, which I am going to touch on a little bit more later, check out where most of LeBron James' attempts have come from in his career. Every single season, his leading metric by far is from 0 to 3 feet away from the basket. Unfortunately, this data for Michael Jordan doesn't exist outside of his Wizard seasons, but I don't think it needs to exist for you to know MJ didn't barrel into the paint as much as LeBron James given the size difference. Given that you'd probably know that, this 0.6 of a percentage point that separates their career field goal percentage shouldn't mean jack shit. And the fact that I've heard Nick Wright just try to gloss over this like LeBron was just so much more efficient than Jordan, again, those are just the things that hurt my head. Let's move on. Okay, so
I will say, just player for player, LeBron and Jordan, one thing I still do agree with out of that segment is Jordan being a more technically sound guy in terms of skill. For obvious reasons, Bron being bigger, faster, and stronger, he was able to get to the paint more, able to do more damage that way. It's kind of like the same thing that you hear people who actually played against all of these guys say, though. When they talk about LeBron, Jordan, and Kobe, they will often say, yeah, Bron was tough to deal with. However, Jordan and Kobe was taking us apart in a lot of different ways. That's the common theme of guys that have actually defended them. From that section, I will still say I probably agree. While still agreeing at this point, LeBron is still the greatest player I've ever seen.
Now we're going to get onto the topic of defense. Mr. Wright actually did have a point about LeBron being a more versatile defender. I mean, he's bigger. His size has allowed him to guard real fours like Pau Gasol occasionally, although I don't think I've ever actually seen him take on a legitimate center for any good amount of time. All this talk about him guarding all 5 positions, but would you have wanted him down there with Dwight Howard in 2009? If DeMarcus Cousins was on fire, would you stick LeBron on him?
Oh boy, that dates this one. DeMarcus Cousins. Ain't he in Puerto Rico now? Oof.
Okay, wait. The whole 5 position thing, that's its own topic. Yes, LeBron is more versatile, and in today's small ball game, you could technically let him guard anyone in most situations. But how many times do we need to go over the facts that versatility does not equal better? Technically, Draymond Green is one of the league's most versatile players. He can guard almost any position, he can pass well, shoot the 3 ball, ruin your chances at parenthood. You can find more uses for Green than a lot.
Oh, buddy, that's especially funny right now.
A lot of players that he's still not better than. So bringing it back to MJ and LeBron, I'm struggling with this for a few reasons. First off, Michael Jordan has a lot more steals than LeBron in the same amount of time. 2,514 versus 1,835. That gap is not closing before the season ends unless LeBron turns into LiAngelo Ball. So again, there's no need to wait.
A LiAngelo Ball joke that people full on understood at this time. Once again, dated.
Can compare for that. Along with leading the league in scoring 10 times, Michael also led the league in steals 3 times. How many times did LeBron do that? None. Zip. 0. Michael has a Defensive Player of the Year award. Let's check. Nope. LeBron does.
Yeah, this was straight up head assery by me. I'm gonna be so honest. Braun was supposed to, when was he supposed to have won Depoy? I can't remember the season off the top of my head. There was certainly a season he could have qualified for it and just didn't get it. And the whole award debate, I have become so different on that over the years. Once you see how these awards have been voted on, who's voted on them. Hell, I just ran into an article today where I believe it's Zach Lowe has taken himself out of the all NBA votes because he doesn't want to mess with guys' paychecks. I was just reading in Tony Parker's book today how he was saying he thought he deserved first all NBA over Chris Paul a couple of years, but because Paul was in LA with a lot more rioters and he was in San Antonio, he doesn't feel like he got the love. I will say, in terms of awards that are voted on or partly voted on by media, however it works, I have different thought process on it these days. Braun should have a unanimous MVP like Steph, and probably could have a Depoy as well.
Doesn't have that. Michael has 9 defensive first team selections. LeBron has 6. On top of everything I just said, LeBron is only 33 years old right now, and he's already quit playing defense as far as we can tell this season. So if we open up the good old basketball Bible and scroll down.
Oh, LeBron had quit playing defense. I made this before that finals run. I can't even act like I can fully qualify that right now. It probably wasn't true. Maybe not the way I just made it sound right there. And before I even finish this section, again, it kind of goes back to the eras debate. Bron, you're not putting him on Jokic consistently. You're not putting him on prime Dwight and all that, the superstar 5s. Yet his versatility on defense absolutely accounts for the minutes that he was on that end, regardless of why. Yeah, he was bigger than Jordan, stronger. That just factors into it. And the guys he's had to guard too, once again, this is me in the future having watched more Jordan footage from around that time and more of those games, and just, yeah, bro. The thought process is a little bit different today. Defenses as a whole in this era are more complex than they were a long time ago.
Here, we can see that Michael actually made the defensive first team for every year that he played in the 90s, including when he was 34 years old in his last season with Chicago. So not only was he winning championships, not only was he winning scoring titles, but he was simultaneously playing both sides of the floor at a high level. Do you know how many passes we give today's superstars for not playing great defense because we know they're carrying an offense? Michael did both. There was no such thing as a Jordan-led squad being the worst defensive team in the league because the tone he set wouldn't allow it. I think I've said enough here.
The thing I would say here with the point I just made, I don't know how I did that and didn't also consider the Chicago Bulls defense as a whole. Yeah, Jordan set a tone, that's cool. But especially for the teams that had Pippen, that had Rodman, they've got to have a little bit of credit, well, a lot of credit there. Then I'm just talking about the 18 Cavaliers here being 29th in defense. I don't think the 17 Cavs were that great either during the regular season. Still though, especially today, that's a team thing. And oh yeah, I forgot to comment on the steals point from earlier. Steals help when talking about defense. Can't necessarily use that as an overarching theme for it, obviously. There can be a guy that's great at stealing the ball because he plays passing lanes or he gambles and such. Doesn't speak to the defense as a whole, it just helps. And yeah, once again, the whole LeBron just quit playing defense thing there. 2 years later, he won an NBA championship. That's funny.
Also, if you're wondering about blocks, MJ currently has him by about 20, so it seems like LeBron is gonna either tie or pass him this season. I think that means we can call that stat a wash because there's not gonna be a margin where we can just flat out say someone was way better regardless of what happens. Of course, LeBron has his signature chase down block he was better at, but the numbers are gonna be pretty close there. So, to the point we're at now, we've established Michael as the clear better offensive player. You can go ahead and make a huge deal out of the 0.6 of a percentage point that separates their shooting if that's your cup of tea, but I don't think it's a strong argument, especially when you consider how many of those buckets were right at the rim because LeBron is a freight train. After all, he's so much bigger and stronger, right? If you're even gonna dare to question who the better scorer is, and LeBron is that much bigger and stronger, that field goal percentage shouldn't be that close. Plus, according to Nick Wright, it's such an important thing that Michael attempted 3 more shots a game than LeBron. So if Michael shot more and LeBron scores closer to the basket more, then why are you boasting a 0.6 of a percentage advantage in that category? We've also established that LeBron is the more versatile defender, but there's no way in the hell you can make a case that he was the better defender. There's gonna be more on that at the end, I promise. And if you look at the common statistical categories as a whole, this means the only thing you can clearly say LeBron James is better at is rebounds and assists. It's the only part of these major scorebox stats that LeBron just flat out did better than him. Just let that sink in for a moment. Listening to Nick Wright make blanket statements about LeBron being so much better at this and so much better at that, and I just laid everything out in front of you, and the ending result was that LeBron passes better than Jordan and he rebounds better than Jordan. If you consider the fact that LeBron is a freight train and that Michael Jordan is a shooting guard where playmaking isn't exactly in the job description, then doesn't it make sense that James is better at those things anyways? Let's keep going. Actually, before we do that,
couple of things there. First, once again, just on the point of defense, I think that's one of those factors where today I just kind of land closer to saying, hell, you can compare defense across eras, but it's really hard just because of how much the game has changed, the jobs that certain guys have, the schemes that teams run, especially with 2 players of this caliber for their own eras. It's really difficult to just look at one and say, you can say this or you can't say that. Different rules, what was allowed and what wasn't in terms of zone. This is why I don't participate in the GOAT debate anymore. I stopped. I think this was the last definitive thing I really made about it, and I will probably never fully go on to make another one. I have just changed quite a bit. I do think in this video, I don't remember touching on Jordan and the small stretch that he had as point guard, but it showed that he could kind of play it. I think that's more what I was getting at with talking about him being a shooting guard and what the jobs were. Once again, different times. That kind of touches into the positionless argument and what players are asked to do. Hell, we have a center that in today's NBA, the way he plays could qualify as one of the better point guards. That is where we are at.
Yeah, LeBron supposedly has more range than Jordan because he shoots 1.6% better from threes, but if you're a Nick Wright fan and agree with his logic so much, then let's do a little math on those 3-point attempts MJ never got to take. You know, since his 3-shot attempts per game was such a big deal. LeBron has taken more than twice as many 3-pointers as Michael in these same 15 years, and he's made barely 1,000 more. So Mike made 581 out of his 1,778 attempts. If you did the math to adjust for errors and gave Michael the green light to shoot 3-pointers like everyone else today, according to the percentage he shot, he would have ended up with around 1,452 3-pointers, which is barely less than what LeBron has right now. But if you listen to Nick Wright, he'll have you thinking that LeBron is just a superior shooter from there because his three-pointers made are so much higher. It's all in the era, people. It's pretty simple. Players are taking way more three-pointers today than they did even 10 years ago.
Once again, which is why I do not participate in these conversations today, because two things. On one side, you will have Nick Wright, who I guess I was saying here just laid those numbers out and said, oh, LeBron has this many, Jordan has this many. Doing that without talking about eras is disingenuous. But then you have to basically do what I just did and write up a complete hypothetical to adjust for a player in that era. And there's no way to determine if that would have actually happened. That's just a statistical guess. It's a hypothetical. So yeah, that's another reason I just don't participate now. It's useless to me.
And again, I'm just using Nick Wright's attempt logic. If you're going to start the question if Michael was the better scorer because he took 3 more shots a game and ended up not even 1 percentage point behind LeBron in efficiency, then I'm going to use that same logic on LeBron taking twice as many threes over his entire career. Comparing them up to their 15 seasons, Jordan has 5 MVPs, LeBron has 4. Unless James Harden gets abducted or the Monstars pop up and take his talents, LeBron won't match that this season, and I think this year was the best shot he was going to get at another MVP. So check. But hang on a minute, I'm not done yet. Take note that I haven't said one thing.
I was right there. Yeah, LeBron will never win MVP again. That is, at this point, that's probably a guarantee. Oh, and before the pandemic, they tried hard. You remember, that's the year the Lakers won, and Giannis and the Bucks, they were on a historical pace. It was Giannis's award. And I think Bron beat the Clippers and the Bucks in the same week, or the Lakers beat them in the same week. LeBron played really well. And Kendrick Perkins was on it. Twitter was on it. Ooh, they were trying to give Bron that MVP. Who knows the way it was going? Who knows what would have happened if that season had been allowed to finish? But yeah, at this point, there will be no more Bron MVPs.
Thing about a quote-unquote team accomplishment yet. We're just going player for player right now, mano a mano. With an equal amount of years in the league, Jordan killed him in personal accomplishments. More points, more steals, more defensive accomplishments as a whole, more MVPs, and now I'm gonna dabble into something called killer instinct. I get that this isn't a tangible.
Oh, brother. I did it. I did the thing. Let me just see what I said here.
Concept, and it can't definitively be measured by anything, but I can't make this video without this next part. When we compare two greats, we have to compare their entire body of work no matter what they've done to redeem themselves. So take 2011 for example, because although you didn't want me to go there, I'm going there. But I'm not going to go there out of hate, I'm just going there to make a point. We can't crucify LeBron for it and use it as a reason to say he's a career choker, that he doesn't have killer instinct at all, because since 2011 he's done a crazy amount of things. I've witnessed them firsthand. However, when we have a
I want to go through my channel and see how many times I've had to reference Bron's game in 2012. I think about that sometimes with the career videos I do. A lot of it intersects and you end up having to talk about moments over and over. And just even in the last year, I feel like I've referenced it at least 5 times.
Conversation like the one at hand, something like 2011 still has to be a part of the conversation because the information there is valuable. No matter what's happened since then, in this conversation, any meltdowns or no-shows are always going to be relevant. Again, I want to be perfectly clear here. LeBron James obliterated my Celtics in 2012. He led the charge on a comeback against the greatest team of all time. He was the best player in a series against the Spurs, who are one of the greatest organizations ever. LeBron has more than made up for 2011, and even with that, it's still gonna matter in a greatest of all time conversation. MJ is 6-0 in the finals, and you can't just write that off as a team accomplishment because unlike with LeBron, you've never heard of a tragic Jordan moment on that stage because it doesn't exist. All there was is greatness. 41 points a game on 50% shooting to go with 9 rebounds, 6 assists and 2 steals against the Suns in '93, the flu game against the Jazz, the epic steal on Malone, and his final shot with the Bulls. When you pull up Jordan's final resume, how he performed individually as the best player in the league on the biggest stage with the most pressure, all you find is him going above and beyond almost every single time. But unfortunately with LeBron, the same can't be said. Sure, he's had his amazing moments, hell, even in a series like 2015 where he didn't win, even the fact that he made us think he could win was great. But that is never gonna change what I'm about to show you. I want you to hear something. It's something that you should never have to hear about a player as great as LeBron James, an insult to his legacy, but one that he allowed.
For Magic, what do you expect from LeBron tonight? I want to see him, Stewart, have some fun, get into his defense, because the key is, can he stop Jason Terry? Can he stop stop Jason Terry?
Can he stop Jason Terry?
Hey, before whatever I'm about to say here, just a couple of things. Since then, I have delved deeper into Jordan's finals, actually seeing the full games. And once again, I think that was the start of me not being able to believe what I was watching, just in terms of basketball and how far the game has come. And watching him kill Dan Marley in that Sun series with the most basic of superstar basketball moves, it was like, man. But I still will say, though, just because finals are always such a big conversation between those two, and any player on that pantheon, any top player, your finals performances are gonna matter. That is one of the reasons 6-0 is so strong for Jordan. He really might be the only player in history that doesn't have a single moment that you can point to and say, damn, that really damaged them. Hell, I made a video talking about Tim Duncan having the most perfect career, and you still get that one blemish of him missing the layup against Shane Battier. We just went over Bron's moment here. Kobe's got down moments. Shaq's got down moments. Hell, in 06, in the closeout game, if you go watch it, Alonzo Mourning might have been more important than that one. I really do need to go and fact check it. Yeah, Jordan might be the only player in history that does not have one that really affects him, especially because there was never even a game 7. But yeah, once again, this comes before yet another LeBron championship. 2011 will have always happened. There's still no doubt he's made up for it, though.
Those of you that don't know, 2011 couldn't have really been a worse situation for James. They got all the way to the finals where they were definitely favorites to beat a Mavericks team nobody was even paying attention to until they swept the Lakers. Then he proceeded to mock Dirk.
I want people to always remember this about the 11 Mavs, because once again, as time passes, you get the rewriting of history and how good was this team, and oh, wait a minute, they had this guy who was a star. I just want people to remember coming into the 2011 season, the Mavericks, it wasn't that they weren't on the radar, it's just nobody cared about them. I said it in a recent video this year: Miami, Boston, Los Angeles Lakers. That was like the crop. Hell, even that's funny talking about it when you know the Spurs existed. I'm just going as somebody who lived through it at that time. Those were the guys that you expected to be there. The Mavs getting there and winning, I never want that to not be a tremendous accomplishment. Never gonna rewrite that as something that was supposed to just happen. Maybe in 2010 when they traded for Caron Butler. Hell, me personally, I was higher on them at that point, and Caron Butler didn't even get the play in these playoffs.
Dirk being sick and averaged less points than both Wade and Bosh. But those were his teammates. The real problems start when you open up the basketball Bible and see that he was even outscored by Jason Terry, and he was slightly less efficient as well. For those of you sucking your teeth in the back, yes, I'm gonna be petty about that 0.2 of a point because it was Jason fucking Terry, a role player, a 33-year-old role player who had no business being touted as the guy LeBron needed to stop. And the biggest problems are what the tape shows. Maybe we would have been able to let this go if it stopped at the numbers, but what the tape shows can't be changed. It can't be spun, twisted, or justified like a lot of these stats. Roll the clip.
16th year with the organization, he started as a video coordinator. Terry, nice move! It goes down hard. Even if you don't get along, there comes a point where you got to stop sugarcoating. This veteran Mavericks team, always confident they can come back. Terry shot rolls. Just past the midway point of the fourth, Terry drive to the basket, lays it up. Taylor right so many times during these playoffs. Terry the drive was right at LeBron James. James back on Terry, one dribble, pull up, puts it in. Percentages extraordinary tonight. 56 for Miami, 56 for Dallas. Terry wide open for three. Nowitzki trying to get free. Good ball to Allen again. Shot clock at 5. Terry the drive, out to Kidd. Kidd for three. It's good. Nowitzki wants the ball. Has him again. Excellent ball drive. Terry a long three. Jason Terry gives the Mavericks a 7-point lead with 33 seconds remaining. Away, throws it ahead to Terry. James is back. Terry, jump shot is good.
I say, can you give me 14, 15 minutes? Because this is what you dreamed of.
Hey, point still stands. Damn. I was wondering how long that was gonna go. This is why LeBron's career is so amazing to me, though. You look at something that happened, such as what you just saw, and go, everything that happened in his career afterwards absolutely had to happen for him to still be considered the GOAT. He had to come back in 2016. He had to win 2020. He had to keep going to the finals. He had to go win more finals. Hell, I forgot this was 2011 before he had won a title. Woof. Man, if NBA Twitter had been big back then. Yeah, everything he needed to do, he did. Because that is a very, very hard stain to remove. Maybe it's not removed. It also doesn't necessarily hold him back. It probably does a little bit, given how if they had actually won that 2011 series, his GOAT case would be even stronger. Or Dwayne Wade would have a finals MVP, and that would be another conversation.
Do yourself a favor if you're a LeBron fan. When 2011 comes up in a GOAT conversation, do what Nick Wright did and just take the L. If he can do it, you definitely can. I had a fan on Twitter once try to convince me that this actually wasn't a bad series for James because he averaged 18, 7, and 6. Well, on top of the fact that those just weren't good numbers for a prime LeBron James in the finals, that just shows you didn't actually watch the series. His refusal to take charge on offense, the bad plays at crucial moments, and him getting beat off the dribble by Jason Terry time and time again says everything that needs to be said about that series. Also, this was at a time when LeBron James was being touted as a defensive stopper. The guy everyone credited with shutting down MVP roles just a few weeks before this series started. The reason I went in depth on this case is because it matters in this conversation. Looking at the whole body of work, considering I've already showed you Michael's personal resume beats LeBron's pretty easily, when you start digging into their postseason performances, the good and the bad on the biggest stages matters. I get it, rings can't be the only thing used to compare a player because it takes a team to win them. No championship team in history was just one man with no supporting cast, but on the flip side of that, bro, some players are a lot more important to their team's success than others, and those are the players rings really make a difference for. Comparing Steve Kerr the player to Russell Westbrook and using rings in the argument is stupid. Russell is a once-in-a-generation talent. Steve Kerr hit three-pointers sometimes. Rings have no bearing on that conversation whatsoever. LeBron and Jordan are two franchise, once-in-a-lifetime players that were each the face of the league. Rings aren't the only comparison for them, but when comparing their bodies of work, rings will carry weight. And especially when one of these guys could have had 4 had he have not crumbled on that stage. So when you compare LeBron and Jordan, two of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball, you can't just say you're not going to count the times they made it to the biggest stages because it was a team accomplishment. In the words of Chris Smoove, how do you compare two products by omitting important features? You don't. Michael Jordan won his first 3 championships with one all-star caliber player. Go look at the rosters. As a matter of fact, for any of Jordan's 6 championships, the only players to actually make the all-star team in any given year was either him or Pippen. But again, go look at the first 3 rosters. From 91 to 93, that was their three-peat roster. None of these guys outside of Pippen were all-star caliber players. Horace Grant made one all-star team in his entire career, and that was in 1994 when Jordan left. Bill Cartwright made one all-star team in 1980. That was almost 10 entire years before he even joined the Chicago Bulls. I'm not trying to disrespect these players' careers, but with all due respect, these guys were not making up some fucking super team that was claiming they were going to win 8 championships. No matter who likes it or who doesn't, Michael Jordan is still 6-0, and he showed up every single time his team got to the big stage. There is no story.
Talking about the teams is funny, mainly because this is before The Last Dance came and did a lot for sure. It also definitely painted the 98 team as a squad that damn near won off the will of Jordan. I will just say the efforts to make the Bulls out to be a super team, I still won't ever get along with. I just can't. Maybe I'll entertain the discussion about the ones when Dennis Rodman joined that I'm still not calling those super teams. The first 3 as well though, no, never. I will never, bro.
About a role player consistently blowing by Jordan. There's no story about an 8-point game in a pivotal part of a series. There's no story about whether his averages in a series that he lost in 5 games were during garbage time or not. And finally, there is no story about Jordan's teams winning a 7-game series where they were the underdogs. Do you know why his teams were never underdogs? I'll give you a hint.
MJ. Oh, Harry did it!
And then we just go on into a mix at the end. Damn, I really I might have inspired The Last Dance. I absolutely didn't, but I might have. Yeah, overall, fun video. I spent a lot of time talking about the finals, mostly just because it used to irk me that people would try and admit it. You heard everything I said there. Just knowing if the roles were reversed and the records were switched, you would absolutely hear more about how important the finals are. That much I still agree with. You could just look at current players. You can look at what just happened with Jokic. Nobody's able to say anything because they went and won the championship when they were supposed to. If they would have went out in the third round, or if they had even lost in the finals, be a totally different conversation happening around Denver right now. Hell, there would be a conversation. It still feels like even though they won, it's not as loud as it should be. Okay, Kevin Durant, still searching for a ring without the Warriors. That will change a lot if he gets one. Steph, it did change a lot that he got one people couldn't say anything about. Just those guys, championships will always matter for. Still, I would not be doing any more GOAT debates. I look at this video and it's just difficult. It's really difficult to compare across eras. When you go and watch the actual footage, you're just going, man, the basketball that you watch today, it's supposed to be better than what you watched 30 years ago, and it really is. Hell, I can't remember which coach said the game has got more skillful. That was a recent quote. Yeah, there's just no reason for it. And as predicted, it's still the same debates every day on Twitter. It never ends. It never goes anywhere. So I'm happy I made this for its time. I am retired though. I will not be participating in any Jordan, LeBron, Kobe debates ever again.